One of the biggest problems I see Infusionsoft customers struggling with is getting good quality email content prepared to go into your Infusionsoft sequences. If you're like most Infusionsoft users, I imagine you have plenty of ideas as to how you could develop your campaigns. But quite often the brakes are put on by just simply getting the emails prepared and getting them into your Infusionsoft app. And this creates a sort of Infusionsoft guilt where you're paying all this money over to Infusionsoft every month and you know you could be using the system to do more, to generate more business and to nurture the relationship that you have with your best customers. One of the answers to this problem is to hire a copywriter. And I believe there are a number of problems with hiring copywriters today. The first problem, if you're using Infusionsoft and you're looking for a copywriter to write emails for you, is you need to find a copywriter who understands what I call Infusionsoft logic. Infusionsoft logic is the ability to think in goals and sequences. So if certain goals happen, so if a contact clicks on a certain link, if a contact buys a particular product, if a contact tells you something over the phone and you apply a specific note template, then trigger certain things, because Infusionsoft is best used as a sort of one-to-one relationship building tool. So really what you're doing in Infusionsoft is you're measuring or you're listening out for when certain things happen and you're trying to build a conversation based on that. And my experience is that there are Infusionsoft certified partners and consultants who are very good at thinking in terms of if-then Infusionsoft logic. Many of these people are very intelligent and have software backgrounds, and I think if you have a software background or a computing background, then this sort of logic that underpins an Infusionsoft campaign is quite easy to think about. It comes to you quite naturally. But these people tend not to be copywriters. They tend not to be the people who are actually preparing the emails to go into your campaigns. The copywriter is the person who's actually going to prepare the email, and the email is going to be what convinces the prospect in your Infusionsoft database to part with his or her hard-earned cash and buy your products and services. The copywriter is good at preparing these emails, but the copywriter generally isn't very good at thinking in terms of if and then logic. And actually to have your copywriter build out a campaign in Infusionsoft probably isn't a very good use of his or her time. So what happens is you end up being in the middle, trying to organise the Infusionsoft experts and trying to organise the copywriters and desperately trying to get your campaigns ready so you can start seeing some better results from Infusionsoft. The second problem that you've got is the copywriter that you hire must be affordable and must be within your marketing budget. So there are various high-profile copywriting options. So you could hire someone like Drayton Bird, for example, someone like Dan Kennedy, someone like Perry Marshall, someone like David Deutsch. And these people are going to deliver copywriting that's really going to make a difference in your campaigns, but they're also going to be extremely expensive. So last time I spoke to someone about this, Dan Kennedy charges in the region of $100,000 for a sales letter. So if $100,000 is beyond your budget, which I imagine it probably is, then we're going to have to think of another approach. A third problem with hiring copywriters today is that when you diagnose your problem, you found a copywriter who you think might be able to deliver the work that you need. Hiring that copywriter is very much like hiring a hired gun. So the copywriter doesn't have much of an incentive to work with you in the long term beyond delivering the work that you've given them in the brief that you've prepared. And this actually means that you take on a lot of the risk, because not only have you got to diagnose your problem, you've got to identify a suitable copywriter. You've then got to, in most cases, pay them up front, or at least pay a hefty deposit on the work. And actually, this is quite a lot of risk on your part. So if you've ever paid for copywriting work, you'll know that copywriting work isn't necessarily always very cheap. And actually, that doesn't matter so much if you can be sure that you're going to get a lot of value out of the work. But as it is at the moment, you're taking on quite a lot of the risk. When you hire a copywriter who's a hired gun, so the first thing that I thought of really was actually the copywriter's responsibility is to charge you as much as possible up front and deliver the work as fast as possible so they can move on to the next hired gun project. That, of course, was an internal thought, and you didn't see that. And, but actually, I think what we should be moving towards is something more like this, where the copywriter's responsibility is to deliver long-term profits to your business above and beyond the fee that they charge you. I believe that this is possible, but I think it requires a few structural changes to the way that we find and employ copywriters to work on our accounts. A related problem to this is figuring out, well, where does the copywriter's fee come from anyway? In most cases, you'll have a conversation with a copywriter, you'll talk through what you're doing, they'll ask you a bunch of questions that may be relevant to your situation, like how many campaigns do you need, how many emails do you need, and they'll quote you a fee. And that fee actually is basically an arbitrary number that may or may not represent good value to your business, based on the business outcomes that that copywriting work is going to provide. And the problem at the moment up front is that you don't know how much value the copywriting work is going to provide to your business, and the copywriter doesn't either. So actually the fee that the copywriter proposes to you by definition is always going to be expensive or cheap, depending on the value that that work delivers to your business. A fifth problem, if you go down the budget copywriting route, and let's say for example you hire a copywriter from somewhere like Elance or Odesk, and there are good copywriters on Elance and Odesk, but the fundamental problem with doing this is that you have to diagnose your own situation and you have to produce your own brief, and the quality of work that you get back from people you hire on Odesk and Elance is going to be directly proportional to how good the brief is that you give them. And this actually causes a lot of problems, because in many cases you're actually in quite a bad position to produce your own brief, because you end up being too close to your Infusionsoft campaigns. It makes it difficult to see the woods for the trees, and actually what you need up front quite a lot of the time is an objective opinion to tell you which directions you need to be taking your campaigns in before you can produce a brief to give to a copywriter. I also have the nagging sensation as well that you probably have better things to be doing in your business than preparing copywriting briefs. So if we consider that copywriting might be perhaps a $100 an hour skill, then if you're the business owner, then there are other tasks that you could be working on in your business that are more valuable than copywriting, are more valuable than preparing copywriting briefs, which means that the briefs that you end up producing don't tend to be much good, and therefore the copywriting that you get from places like Odesk and Elance tends not to deliver the results that you need. There are, of course, a few alternatives to hiring a copywriter. We've seen almost a proliferation of pre-canned email sequences in the last couple of years. So, for example, Digital Marketer have their system called The Machine. And actually, I've had a look at this, and what I think that systems like The Machine provide is they provide a lot of structure in your accounts. So they provide a lot of structure in terms of thinking what happens when a contact comes into your Infusionsoft system, what happens after you've sent them to certain offers, what nurture sequences you send them to, and it provides a lot of structure to making sure that people don't fall through the cracks. But what they don't provide you with is good content, because that content really has to come from you. No pre-canned sequence is going to address why your business exists and communicate your mission to the people that you're trying to get your message to. No pre-canned sequence is going to communicate what you stand for, what you stand against, who it is that you're trying to speak to, and why those people should deal with you and nobody else. These are all things that I think your Infusionsoft sequences need to communicate, and that has to come from you. It has to come from you, or it has to come from a copywriter who's working on your behalf. A slightly related option is I'm seeing a number of niche specific pre-canned copy sequences. So if, for example, you're in the self-storage industry, I know a particular marketer who offers or leases out his own pre-canned sequences, so you can buy those sequences. And actually, again, this might work as a starting point. But again, what I think this does is it provides structure. So when you buy a pre-canned sequence like that, you'll get these sequences and you'll get these emails, but you're still going to have to edit the emails, because the emails are going to have your voice. And ultimately, you're still going to have to do a lot of copywriting work yourself. I think with all these sequences, you need to be aware of magical thinking, because there is a degree of magical thinking, and it's quite appealing to think that you can buy someone's system and drop it into your account and it's just going to work and it's just going to churn out sales. And I don't think that that's actually very true in most circumstances. So yes, these programs can provide a lot of structure, but I still don't think that they're going to have the content that you need to really build a relationship that you need to build with your prospects to generate the sales that you need to generate. The third alternative to hiring a copywriter is to write your own copy in-house. So either yourself or someone on your team. And I think there's a few things to talk about here. So the first thing to think about is, do you genuinely have copywriting expertise in-house, or do you have product expertise in-house? Quite often you can get away with product expertise. So I think that if the people that you're trying to sell to have quite a high level of awareness about your products and they're quite familiar with your products, and you don't need to bridge a huge education gap, then sometimes all you need is product expertise, and all you're doing in your Infusionsoft sequences is sending people the right information at the right time. In that circumstance, you really don't need to hire a copywriter. The copywriter's job really is to bridge that education gap. So if someone coming into your Infusionsoft sequences is quite a long way from placing an order or instigating a sales conversation with you, then that's when you're going to really need copy expertise as well. We've already talked about the fact as well that if you're the business owner, you probably have more valuable tasks to be doing than copywriting. And I think that if you do copywriting in-house, there's a slight risk that you might avoid the bigger questions. So the bigger questions would be things like, do we need to change the offer? Is there a different approach we need to take? Are we talking to the wrong market? These are bigger questions that an external copywriter might ask you, but an internal copywriter probably won't. So in short, I think this is doable, but I think guidance is recommended, so I would certainly consider it as an option. I'd like to introduce my approach to copywriting work. So if you were to hire my company, the Confusion Clinic, and we were to talk about a project, then actually to hire me and my team for a copywriting project will probably cost you in the region of about $10,000. Sometimes less, sometimes more, depending on the work that I think is involved on my side. And thinking about this in the last few months has caused me a bit of a problem, because the question has remained, what if you're struggling to justify your Infusionsoft bill, let alone pay $10,000 on a copywriting job? And I think the answer comes down to hiring a copywriter as an investor in your business, not just a hired gun. Because investors think differently to hired guns. A hired gun is going to ask you what you want. A hired gun is going to ask you how many campaigns you need, how many emails you need. An investor is going to ask you about your business numbers. An investor is going to ask you about the growth of your business, about the proposition you make and how strong that proposition is to your target audience. An investor is going to question whether you can really focus down even more on a particular target audience. And these are things that I think your copywriter needs to be asking you. So this got me thinking, could we do a copywriting project on more of a profit-sharing relationship? Because you'll remember from earlier that the $10,000 fee that I've just quoted you is basically an arbitrary number based on the time that I think I want to put into a copywriting job. So based on the research, based on the production, based on the editing, based on setting everything up, based on the testing. That's kind of on my side what I think goes into it. But actually what we should be doing is pricing jobs based on what it's worth to you and your business. And actually I think there's a big opportunity here to do more of a profit sharing relationship. So a true investor is actually invested in your business success. So if you were to approach me, and let's say that you don't have the $10,000 to spend on a copywriting project, but we have a conversation and we have a Dragon's Den Shark Tank type conversation, and I'm not saying I'm a dragon by any stretch of the imagination, but we're going to have a more fundamental conversation about your business, and we're going to establish whether I think that there is real potential in the long term for me to work on this as a copywriter. So maybe there's not a lot of money in it today right now, but maybe you have a great proposition for a well-defined group of people who are ready to spend money on your products and services if you can get the campaigns in place. That to me is a huge amount of potential in your account. And actually what I might be able to say to you in that on that basis is that I might be able to charge you a much lower fee initially just to cover my time to work on the project, and we come to a long-term profit-sharing relationship where, as long as we're measuring all of the outcomes of the work that I'm doing, that we can actually work together to generate more business for you overall. And actually that does a couple of very interesting things, because in this relationship either party can walk away at any point. As the copywriter, I can walk away if I feel that the work that I'm doing isn't paying me well enough to the effort that I'm putting in. And you, as the client, can walk away if you feel that the results that you're getting from the copywriter's work aren't delivering what you need. So actually, rather than me quoting you an arbitrary number, the relationship kind of balances out over time. Either I'm being paid enough to justify the outcome that I'm generating for you, or I'm not. So this is really an open invitation to you. If you're an Infusionsoft user and you need to get better results from your Infusionsoft campaigns, I would like to invite you to get in touch with me, and we'll have an initial conversation about whether this might be a viable option for both you and for me. And ultimately what I'm doing is, if you hire me, I'm actually investing in your business. I'm investing my time, and I'm investing in the hope of future profits. And I believe that under this arrangement, the results will work out better for you because you get a copywriter who's genuinely invested in your business, and the results will work out better for me because ultimately, in the long run, I will earn a lot more than the $10,000 that I would have quoted you initially to do a hired gun copywriting project. I hope you found this short presentation interesting, and I would love to hear what you think.